been using shorter cranks for over a year now, and this is the truth about them. So before I jump into the pros and cons, let me tell you the why. So around this time last year, I had been trying to break the 300 watt FTP mark. I was looking for every possible thing that would help me unlock this goal I had. And the topic of shorter cranks came up. So you can imagine I've spent 4 months trying this out. I'd swapped to a more aggressive bike fit. I tried all these different things, and I'd been seeing about more and more pros moving over to shorter cranks. And the thing that really sealed the deal for me was having a chat with a bike fitter. And he kind of gave this interesting example, which was like, if you've ever done a hack squat, if you half rep it, it's obviously more easier. You're not doing the full range of motion. And he said it effectively applies to shorter cranks as well. So some of the advantages of moving to shorter cranks, and in my case, I went from the standard 172.5 mil cranks down to 165. And the main advantages of shorter cranks are they technically make you more aerodynamic as your legs are going up and down less. They can make it easy to breathe when holding an aerodynamic position, especially when in the drops as well. Some interesting ones as well, that it can actually help with cornering. And this is kind of like a psychological thing as well, but you're less likely to have a pedal strike as you go around the corner. I'll put my hand up here. I had a freak accident and I still cannot work out what caused it. It's either the brake locked up or I had a pedal strike. And ever since swapping to shorter cranked, it's been a bit of a psychological boost, knowing that I've got a little bit more distance in there to prevent that from happening. And the final one, and this is what I learned from my personal experience with shorter cranks, is that the relative perceived effort, or RPE, became much better. So I could hold the same power, or sometimes more, and it just felt a lot easier to me. It felt like the pedal stroke was a lot more efficient. If we think about it, there's less distance to travel with a shorter crank. And I'm not going to guarantee here that if you swap to shorter cranks, you're magically going to hit the 300 watt mark, but that's what happened to me. I tried it out during my rest week, really liked how it felt. Naturally, my cadence went up by about 5 RPM. So at the time, I was sitting at around 85 RPM. I moved to shorter cranks and that instantly shot up by about 5. So I'm now sitting at around 90 RPM. And I'll see this when I go outdoors as well, that I'll sometimes sit at like 95 plus RPM. Depending on your cycling style, this may vary, but I personally prefer a much higher cadence. So I definitely like sitting at that sort of 90 RPM mark. We hear it all the time about how great shorter cranks are, but let me talk about some of the negatives. And since using them for a year, there's probably a couple of points here that you may not have heard about. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So first things first, they can be quite hard to get hold of. With a lot of people wanting shorter cranks now, it's a bit harder and a lot of suppliers sometimes run out of stock and sometimes it's out of stock for quite a while. I've been able to pick up 105, 165 millimeter cranks for about £100. And now if you jump up to Ultegra, you're looking at about £170. So there's another cost to factor in. Something else to consider is once you go to shorter cranks and you really like it, if you go ahead and say purchase another bike or you have more than one, it's just an increased cost to factor in that you're going to have to pay a little bit more money to get some more cranks that will suit you. Minor point as well, and just an FYI, if you do move to shorter cranks and you are using power meter pedals, make sure to go ahead and update the crank length. My brother forgot to do this and his power was all over the place, so just mention that as an FYI. Another negative about shorter cranks, and this one is a little bit harder to describe, so I'm going to try and do my best here. And I think, and again, shout out to Neil Stanbury on this one, I think he said it best. When it comes to sprint efforts, it feels like you have to kind of warm up the cranks or like build up, almost like a flywheel. You don't tend to get that like snappy response, that sort of feeling you get with slightly longer cranks. So if you are a sprinter, this might just be something to consider here. I've definitely found when it comes to an all-out effort, I tend to struggle. You have to kind of build up momentum with the cranks, and that could be like 5 or 10 seconds, and it doesn't quite have the same feel. Now, here's a point that I haven't seen talked about when it comes to shorter cranks. And if you do torque sessions, or are looking to do them perhaps, and if you're not familiar with a torque session, it's high power but low cadence. Think of it like grinding out on the bike, going up a really steep climb. It is definitely harder with shorter cranks, and I've got this backed up with science. I had to ask ChatGPT because I thought I was going crazy at the time. But I said, if I've gone from 172.5mm cranks to 165mm cranks, is it harder? And apparently by about 5%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I definitely had a few struggles when I explained this to my coach when I said, look, I'm struggling to hold around 60 RPM. I was sitting around 65, so the goal was to try and hit 60. And it felt harder. It's the only way I can describe it. It just felt harder. I've since found a workaround to this, and you can probably tell behind it is using the indoor trainer. I've definitely found if you use virtual shifting on Zwift, you can actually crank the sessions out really well. It's still not easier. It doesn't feel as good as it did with the longer cranks. You can still get it done though, but it's just something to factor in, but it is a little bit harder. So if you're somebody who tends to grind it out a lot, sort of lots of low cadence work and things like that, it's just one of those weird things. It's not really talked about, and let's be honest here, a talk session might be maybe a couple of blocks throughout the year. So it's not something you're gonna run into all the time, unless you're one of those people who likes to just grind it out at like sort of 60, 70 RPM on the flat, uphill, and on the descents. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things I've noticed, and I'm not gonna say it's a bad thing. If it's harder, it makes us stronger, but for me at least, yeah, it just makes the talk sessions a little bit harder. Now, the hardest thing about shorter cranks is whether or not you should try it out. And to be honest, if you've got the cash, and let's just say you're running Shimano 105, for £100, I'd probably say it's worth it. Try it out. If you're on the fence, you can always swap back. Honestly, it's a sort of 5-minute job to swap your cranks out. I personally really like it. It suits me really well. It feels really nice. Once I went to the shorter cranks, I just couldn't really go back. It just felt more natural to me, and I feel like I'm just used to it. The only way I can put it is it just feels way more efficient for me and my sort of biomechanics, or just how it works for me as a human. I just feel it's like way more efficient for me. I really like it. I won't be swapping back. And I'd definitely say if you're on the fence, probably go ahead and try it out. If you're a sprinter, maybe debate it. Maybe you go to like 170mm cranks. It's hard to say, but I definitely agree. It feels like you have to wind them up a bit. You have to kind of build up that momentum in there. Apart from that, I'd say the benefits far outweigh the negatives. Just my real world experience, they work really well for me. So yeah, 1 year on, I'm gonna stay using them. So if you got any questions about shorter cranks, I'll be happy to answer them. But if you do end up trying them, let me know in the comments, please. Did it work for you? Did you notice any improvements, or did you go back to your original crank length? And probably one question I'm going to end this with is, why aren't more bike manufacturers shipping bikes with shorter cranks? Because if you listen to all the bike fitters online, pretty much every single bike fitter out there is saying we would all benefit from shorter cranks. And my big brain kicked off here and went, it might not be much of a weight reduction. Let's just say even 5 or 10 grams on the bike. But surely using less material, less weight, from a manufacturing point of view, less material to use up as well, cutting down costs. I'm just thinking it from here, with everything going through like shrinkflation, why we aren't seeing shorter cranks on like more bikes, just to save on that material cost. But I'm guessing it's a bit of a lag indicator, right? That we're hearing it now that bike fitters are talking about using shorter cranks. Maybe in the next 3 or 4 years, we'll start seeing it become a bit of a trend that bikes will start shipping with shorter cranks. And it's a bit of a frustration sometimes with certain retailers and things that you can't just go on there and select and say, hey, I want 165mm cranks, like if they've got them available. Maybe this is an opening for like Canyon or someone to say, hey, I'm buying a bike stock, but can you put these cranks on there for me? It's an interesting thought. Let me know what you think. But yeah, this has been my sort of summary of using shorter cranks for a year. Definitely sticking with it. And I hope with that to see you in the next video soon.